I wanted to go through Asmongold's reaction to the shooting. The space is talking about it, and the space is how I immediately engage with politics, it seems. Oh boy, when I'm back from the front in Ukraine. So I did want to see what they had to say. Just quickly, even if it was just like a brief just hover over Asmon. I mean, Asmon's video on this did much better than I think any other streamer that talked about this. I mean, when it comes to like reach, I mean, over 3 million views. Wouldn't be surprised by when it's all said and done if it hit 4 million. It's on its way to do that. So I wanted to see what he had to say in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, because I've been busy paying attention to mainstream media. I haven't really paid any attention to how our space has been reacting to it.
Hey guys, it's me again, and it's been a little while. Just before I get into the main topic of the video, I want to explain why there haven't been any videos about it and talk about the guy gets shot in the nation of Charlie Kirk. This happened a few hours ago, and it was probably one of the most gruesome and graphic, and this is coming from somebody who grew up on LiveLeak, videos I've ever seen. The first time I saw a video, I thought it was AI generated. The guy gets shot in the neck, and blood is spurting out. I didn't even know it could do that. And it was absolutely fucking horrifying to see something like that happen in front of...
He didn't know blood could spurt, or he didn't know it could look like that?
Of a massive audience of people. Now, if you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, Charlie Kirk has been a pretty noteworthy, like controversial guy. He's a conservative. He goes to a lot of college campuses, does live debates. This is a pretty popular format nowadays, and Charlie Kirk has been popularizing it and utilizing it now for many years, and he was even featured in South Park recently because of it. Charlie Kirk definitely is not a super radical right-wing person, but I would say that he's more of the moderate to, kind of extreme right-wing. Very, very, I would say, lukewarm, though, in my opinion, at least.
He's hard right. I mean, I don't know if I would use the word, I wouldn't use the word extremist as like to dictate like how it's used in modern context, definitely in reference to like an assassination. But he was hard right. He was hard right on every major issue. I mean, his like railing against DEI. I mean, the statements he said about, was it, oh God, someone remind me, was it him or Steven Crowder that said what they said about black pilots? Can somebody remind me if it was him or Steven Crowder? I don't want to mix them up in my head. But he had the hard right position on abortion. He has his hard right position on tax. I mean, he had a hard right position on essentially every single social issue. It was Kirk. That was Charlie Kirk who said he's nervous to have a black pilot on a plane. Like his position was hard right. I don't want to, because when you say moderate right, when I think of moderate right, you know what I think of? I would think of somebody maybe like Lisa Murkowski, okay? I would think maybe Susan Collins. When I think moderate right, I would think like somebody like that. But there is no moderate right. I don't know what he means by moderate. What does moderate mean anymore? Does moderate just mean that you're within the American political spectrum and don't want violence? Like, he was hard right. I think that's the easy way to describe him. At least it's the easiest way for me to describe him.
And this is where we're going, especially compared to now. And what I think is going to happen now, because obviously these shootings like this don't really happen inside of a vacuum, and they never do, they never have. And I think that the situation that we have right now is that there is a tremendous amount of political violence that is advocated for, promoted, and allowed to exist on social media that has turned up the temperature in all political conversations, all social conversations, and all discourse on the internet in general, to a point where it's almost unrecoverable. You have people that are out there all the time advocating for violence, advocating for people to get killed. Somebody needs to take care of this guy. Somebody needs to deal with this. I wish he were dead. Won't somebody do it? The 8647, all of the crypto messaging and all the doxing, right? Why do you dox somebody? Why do you post a person's home address? It's to make other people that are insane, like the person who killed Charlie Kirk, it's to give them the ammunition they need to kill that person and to put that person's life in danger. That's why they're doing it. And so that's the reason why they want to find out the identities of ICE agents. That's the reason why they want to find out the identities of Tesla owners. Like,
wait. Back up. Okay. So 8647, one way to interpret that is if you wanted to go it's something that could be interpreted violent. Somebody could say, oh, impeach, it means remove, it could mean that. But if it can be interpreted in a violent way and you're a major political figure, then you shouldn't be throwing it around, right? Fair enough. If you want to talk about like any individual poster about violence, fine. Like anybody calling for violence, condemn them. But how is it? Wait. ICE agents are law enforcement personnel. If there is a law enforcement officer that is trying to detain me and they refuse to identify themselves, what do you expect me to do in that situation? What do you expect anyone to do? Man with a mask who doesn't show their face, wearing sunglasses, grabs me off the street. They're armed. They refuse to identify themselves. Oh, sure, I'll believe that you're just an officer. Please put me in your black tinted van. No, there should be and the same standards for all law enforcement when it comes to identification. If our local cops have to identify themselves, if they have badge numbers, why do ICE officers get special treatment? Why is it that just due to the political divisiveness of their actions, we don't get the same transparency with their enforcement than with everybody else? What you're going to do is you're going to give a veil of law enforcement secrecy to one department. And if you don't think they're going to abuse it, you're crazy. If you don't think nobody knows who I am, nobody knows my name, nobody can identify me, if there's going to be any backlash, it has to come purely from inside the agency or some leak. You don't think there's going to be people who abuse that? Law enforcement agencies are first and foremost meant to service the community. And that means when it comes to identifying them and their relationship with the community, that's what should be first and foremost, because that's the purpose of law enforcement. So the idea that the only reason that somebody would want law enforcement to identify themselves is because they want to be violent towards them and make threats towards them. No, it's so that if somebody abuses them, I'm sure that people have different motivations, but for me, if somebody abuses somebody, the public should be able to know who they are and, why they did it.
At the beginning of the year, it's so they can destroy their car and destroy their lives. And this isn't necessarily a one-sided thing. I think that in the last 5 years or so, especially since BLM, it's been a 90% left-wing thing. But that doesn't mean that the 10% right-wing people...
Wait, back up.
And this isn't necessarily a one-sided thing. I think that in the last 5 years or so, especially since BLM, it's been a 90% left-wing thing.
Political violence has been 90% left-wing? Where does this come from? I mean, he's just throwing this out there. I mean, this is, you can see him clearly guesstimating off of his head right now. But there are statistics you can go out and look for. And I don't got those statistics on hand, but I can tell you that it isn't 90%. Unless you're going to include every specific, I guess do you include a riot as one specific instance of violence and an assassination as one specific instance of violence? Or are you going to include every single time a brick was thrown through a window? Or I don't know what type of math you could do to get to the conclusion that 90% of American political violence comes from the left. And it's people yelling anti-fascista, 90% of it. No, there is a section of it that does. But whether we're talking about the assassination of two Minnesota lawmakers, whether we're talking about Solomon, that one Republican candidate for office who tried to assassinate those Democrats once they lost, whether we're talking about any other number of instances of violent, of course, January 6th being probably the most high-profile right-wing riot in recent memory. I mean, there's types of violence that might be more common amongst certain political ideologies. Like if you're like an Antifa type, you're probably much more likely to like slingshot a cop. But if you're like a prepper type, maybe you're much more likely to make a gun out of a bunch of PVC pipe and assassinate a sitting congressman. I think that the type of violences are going to be different depending upon subcategories. Is it just that Asmongold is very used to just watching riots, and like after watching a bunch of riots, he's like, that's political violence? We're talking about an assassination here. A riot where hundreds of people amorphively like go around and could be doing stuff to loot for personal incentive to political ideology, versus an assassination targeting a specific political figure. These are two very different things. But if we want to line up political assassinations, in recent memory, right-wing shooters and political assassinations have been quite a present force. We also don't even need to get into the topic of Planned Parenthood bombings or targeted attacks around the issue of abortion, because if somebody thinks that it's mass baby murder, well, what do you think somebody could convince themselves to do? I mean, hell, they might get arrested, but they might save thousands of babies in the process. This type of logic has caused quite a few bombings. Point is, like, I don't know where he gets this 90% thing. Look, if he said 50-50, so be it, okay? Maybe it's 60-40, maybe it's 70-30, maybe it's 35-40, who cares? But 90-10, it must just come from his media consumption.
But that doesn't mean that the 10% right-wing people are right either. But I do think that now you're going to see a lot more right-wing people balancing out those scales. The fact is that you can take a knife to a gunfight all you want, and you can think that you're honorable, but you're going to end up being dead. And I think that's what right-wing people have done for a very long time. They've tried to speak above the political violence. They've tried to advocate above it and not try to stoop down to that level. But the issue is that a lot of these social media...
I just do want to put out there that the president of the United States directly used political violence to try to keep himself in office. The thing about January 6th, the scandal even though this is the way that people paint it, is that Donald Trump personally ordered those people to storm the building. No, he got them there. And then the environment around that, around all the rhetoric, around how high tensions were, people and provocateurs that were on the ground, led to people storming the building. And as that was happening, the president had his lawyers calling lawmakers, trying to utilize the situation to pressure the government to overturn election results. That's the utilization of political violence. He sat and watched it on TV for hours, sipping Diet Coke while his lawyers made those calls. So like the idea that not only are they completely above political violence, but it wouldn't be utilized for some purpose. I don't know about that. I don't agree about that. And look, I agree about the idea that a big high-profile assassination like this could cause backlash, and I am very worried about the backlash. But I mean, again, I feel he's disconnected here. I mean, this is like one or two verbal steps removed from just Trump speaking about like, oh, right-wing extremists. They're not really the problem.
Down to that level. But the issue is that a lot of these social media companies have expressed literally zero desire to even do the bare minimum of moderation. I think that two of the worst actors are Twitter or X and Reddit. Both of these.
Yeah, no, I saw these numbers from Socked on Left. I didn't feel like pulling this up because I didn't want to cite like Socked on Left as a source. Like this is one of the more recent ones that I saw that like lists different shootings and like political affiliation of the different shooters. Or the different shooters are different like instances of political violence, murders, deaths, etc. Whether or not this is a full list, the number's not 90%. You have to come from a very specific, I don't even know if these numbers are right. I know Socked on Left is sock, right? Socked on left. So maybe these numbers aren't right, but 90%, it's pure media. It comes from whatever media he's consuming. It's the only explanation.
Platforms are full of a bunch of extremist nut jobs that not only should have their accounts banned, but they should probably be put in mental institutions. And I think that now I find it to be kind of interesting taking a step back for a week or so and seeing how many people are coming around to the inevitable reality that this is the only path forward. There are so many people in society now that are just completely unhinged, under-medicated, and really just completely insane, that you can't have a person like that running wild out in society. They cause problems for themselves, not to mention everybody else around them. And I think that the society, we need to have an honest conversation about how to deal with these people in a way that, and I'll be real, I don't really care about the people that are crazy. Their well-being and the way that, you know, things are for them. Of course, obviously, I wouldn't want it to be bad, but it's certainly not important. What's really important is all of the people who aren't crazy, making sure that people that are not crazy, that are good actors, that are law-abiding citizens, are able to live a life of peace.
Okay, I see where this is going. Asmongold, Arkham Asylum. Got it. Okay. Who, you know, if they're crazy, let them slam their head against the wall a little bit. You know, we just need to protect the rest of us. I don't know why I don't really care about how they're doing. I don't know why I need to. You could have just said we need to do something to contain the threat to themselves and others. I don't know why I need to express the complete disinterest in the well-being of those with mental illness.
A life of prosperity, and a life without fear of going on the subway, for example, as at the recent event as well. And I think that every single person in the world deserves to live in a place like that. And I don't want to see, America turn into a PvP server. And it sure seems like it is. And I think that in order to prevent that from happening, we need to have honest conversations about what do you do with people that, get arrested 14 times. And it's not.
This assassination was done by somebody with a completely clean criminal record. He had never had a negative interaction with law enforcement in his life. He was 22 with a clean slate. Like, the type of what you're talking about now wouldn't have done anything to prevent this shooting.
It's not
like maybe this would be more in reference to like the train stabbing in recent days. That's a totally separate incident, but he's talking about the Charlie Kirk shooting, which was done again by a 22-year-old with zero criminal record.
Even a question, right? You put them in jail and you throw away the key and you compel them to work, and that way you can make the money back from imprisoning them forever. That's the way that you solve that problem. It's very simple, actually. But for some reason, the way that makes people feel has made them unwilling to look at this obvious truth. If you look in history, this is what we've always done in history.
Immoral.
So here's a solution to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Before we even knew the motives of the guy or like what they did, like why they did what they did, was to like reopen the asylum system for like mental asylums. That's what it just sounds like he wants to reopen mental asylums. That's what this sounds like. Which, I mean, is a position to have, I guess, but I don't see how it's relevant. Thank you, YOLO Swag. What a fantastic name for becoming a tier 1 member on YouTube.
And it's because it works. And the problem is that now we have so much of the discourse that's dominated by emotional thinking, that's dominated by the most unstable, the most virtue signal, the most, ridiculous performative empathy possible, and that's defining a huge political voice in the country. This has become a tremendous detriment to everyone. And I think that with people like the shooter that probably shot Charlie Kirk, with that guy in the subway that stabbed that Ukrainian woman, or with that trans shooter that shot up the school, one thing that's common among.
I just want to throw out there again that if you read the person's manifesto, they were a detransitioner. They explicitly wanted to detransition, but they didn't want to cut their hair because they thought it would blow their cover.
All of them is that these people, in almost all cases, were verifiably nuts beforehand, and nothing ever was done about it. And until we can stomach the idea of solving problems like that before they happen, we're going to keep having problems. And I think that with Charlie Kirk, it's very obvious that the amount of political violence and advocating for political violence that's happening on the internet has turned up the temperature and created an environment and a culture where this type of behavior is normal. And not only is it normal, but it's actually encouraged. And the problem is that now people are acting on it. And you're starting to see this happen, and I think it's going to continue getting worse. I don't think Charlie Kirk is going to be the last one, but I think that we will look at Charlie Kirk's death and see it as a turning point in this topic. And what I'm really trying to get at here with this entire...
Is everybody saying turning point in order to like do like the word play? Or did everybody just settle on turning point by coincidence?
Point is that right now we are at a extremely pivotal moment, and I think that what's going to end up happening is that right-wing people are not going to continue to turn the other cheek.
Hey, thank you so much, Basilvich. Thank you so much for the raid of 22. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. We're just listening to what Asmongold had to say about the assassination and our current political tensions. We wanted to walk up to what is that room? I'm sorry, I'm just looking at like his interior decor. I actually haven't taken a moment to look at his interior decorating. Halo, Mario Maker, what looks like half of a torn Mario Maker poster. Is that a band to his back? Interesting room design.
At a extremely pivotal moment, and I think that what's going to end up
it's an attic. Yeah, it looks kind of like an attic.
At a extremely pivotal moment, and I think that what's going to end up happening is that right-wing people are not going to continue to turn the other cheek.
They were turning the other cheek. Again, I mean, I don't need the Minnesota lawmakers didn't get a turn to the other cheek. They got shot in the chest. And it wasn't just any Minnesota lawmaker. It was one of the highest ranking Minnesota lawmakers in the state for the Democratic Party. Like, this idea that the left wasn't turning the other cheek. They were going all out, and the right wing were holding back when it comes to their extremism. I don't know where he got this narrative from. If it's just from his social media consumption, as the algorithm figured out what he likes to hear and served it up to him, or it's the podcasters and shows he's listening to. I have no clue. But this idea that the left isn't turning the other cheek and the right is, but they're going to stop now. So I saw this one comic done. The grammar on it was terrible. It was making me wonder if the guy was really even like American. And I was reading it and it said, praying didn't help Charlie. It was like a Democrat donkey talking to a man on his knees praying.
I have to comment on how healthy and vibrant Dylan's hair looks compared to Asmon's. His Ficlal hair is more full though.
You know what? I think he just needs a spa day. I think that's what Asmon needs. Asmon just needs a spa day.
They're not going to extremely pivotal moment. And I think that what's going to end up happening is that right-wing people are not going to continue to turn the other cheek. They're not going to continue to just, oh, well, you know, this is just a crazy left-wing radical. I think you're probably going to see right-wing people doing the same thing to left-wing people. And honestly, while I don't think this is a good thing, I certainly don't really feel that sorry for them, because a lot of left-wing people have no problem advocating for radical. I think to just, oh, well, you know, this is just a crazy left-wing radical. I think you're probably going to see right-wing people doing the same thing to left-wing people. And honestly, while I don't think this is a good thing, I certainly don't really feel that sorry for them.
Is he saying that he doesn't feel sorry for the violence that'll be brought on left-wing people in response to Kirk? Again, this was released a day ago, like 24 hours ago on the 11th. No, this was released the day. I remember he said this was released hours after the shooting. We don't even know the motives of the person. And he's saying in reaction to it, before we even know the motives of the person, we have a bullet casings right now that give us some idea, even though it's a lot of meme talk. And he's out there saying he won't feel bad if the left gets violence in response. I need to hear that a third time to make sure that is what Asmongold is saying.
Point is that right now we are at a extremely pivotal moment, and I think that what's going to end up happening is that right-wing people are not going to continue to turn the other cheek. They're not going to continue to just, oh, well, this is just a crazy left-wing radical. I think you're probably going to see right-wing people doing the same thing to left-wing people. And honestly, while I don't think this is a good thing, I certainly don't really feel that sorry for them, because a lot of left-wing people have no problem advocating for violence, or at least using coded language in order to advocate for violence.
Dude, this might sound like, after hearing it 3 times in a row, though, this is the logic of a shooter. This is the Asmon might not even realize it. This is the logic of a shooter. Like, hey, if the left has a violence done bad to them, that's okay, because the left's fine with it. He's like completely acting in like collectivist thought. This is the type of stuff that people say to themselves before going out to like a random grocery store and like taking a few shots out of people who they think are like nominally left wing. But I mean, like, maybe they didn't want to be violent towards you. Maybe they're left wing, but all that means is they want to support Social Security. Maybe that just means that they want, hey, maybe they want Medicare for all. It's very scary, Like I don't have sympathy. I don't care, because many left wingers would root this on. This is like collectivist. This is the type of stuff that gets like, I heard member from my tribe shot, hit by arrow. I heard maybe done, not sure though, by a member of that tribe. Oh, if member of that tribe, not related, gets hit in neck with arrow, good. Like, this is like ooga booga rock eating process of thinking. This is not good, Asmon. No bueno, Asmon. No bueno. This is not good. Like, at least he's saying it isn't good to go and be violent back. Just that he doesn't care.
Radical. I think you're probably going to see right-wing people doing the same thing to left-wing people. And honestly, while I don't think this is a good thing, I certainly don't really feel that sorry for them, because a lot of left-wing people have no problem advocating for violence, or at least using coded language in order to advocate for violence.
Like, who got the bomb threat the day after this attack? It was the DNC. What major Democratic Party official didn't condemn this? Like, can we just think about this for 5 seconds? Who are going to be the officials that are going to be targeted? It isn't going to be the people who are calling for violence. The next assassinated target isn't going to be Jerry on TikTok, who recorded a video going, yippee. It isn't going to be them. It's going to be somebody's local representative. It's going to be like the local city councilor that you're angry about because they didn't give you the permit and they're part of the plot. Can we think about this for a second?
The fact is that there's a certain level of intellectual dishonesty that goes on in situations like this, where it's considered, oh, well, this isn't actually what they meant, and no, this is actually some others. No, it is. It's exactly what they mean. They're trying to advocate for killing people that they disagree with. That's what's happening, and there's no talking around it. And to the extent that you try to, you're insulting the intelligence of anyone that you're speaking to. And I think that now you're going to start seeing a lot of right-wing people end up doing this to left-wing people now even more, because it's very clear that these social media platforms are not going to moderate this behavior. The FBI, for whatever reason, just refuses to deal with or have any degree of accountability for...
Who's in charge of the FBI? Is it an experienced professional who knows what they're doing?
For dealing with these obvious terrorists that are in the country. And because of that, I think you're going to start seeing an uptick of violence from right-wing people as well. And this is going to be, in my opinion, I don't really think the word is justified, because it's not justified, but the word is expected. I think it's going to be expected.
And that's not as bad as what he said earlier. Expected, yeah. Say that after one thing of violence, you should expect more violence from it.
The fact is that, again, you bring a knife to a gunfight, you're going to lose. And don't be surprised when you keep bringing guns to gunfights and then somebody else decides to start shooting back. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think this is a degradation of society as a whole. And ultimately, the real burden of responsibility here doesn't really fall on influencers. And I don't think that it falls even on the commenters themselves. I think it falls primarily on the government. The fact is that the government, there are already laws
within the same 24-hour time frame that all this was happening, there was a shooting in Colorado by like a crazy, like far-right anti-Semitic Nazi, where they shot two, like 16-year-olds shot two students and then killed themselves. Like this is gonna, like, when we talk about the people who are gonna set off and react, like the expected reaction, these are the type of people that are probably gonna be the ones setting off. So like those are kids.
Permit, explicit calls to violence. There's already laws that permit the types of stalking and doxing that people engage in online. And one of the big things that is a misconception is that people like me want new laws. We want any form of extra censorship at all. I certainly don't want that, and I don't know anybody else that does either. But what we do want is we want the existing laws to be applied and to be enforced in an accurate and a fair way, which is clearly not what's happening. And really, the government not doing that and giving this asymmetrical, in my opinion, advantage to left-wing people to...
Asymmetrical advantage? What? I'm sorry. Lefties have the asymmetrical advantage in the United States when it comes to terrorism, violent terrorism. Look, there is such a thing as a John Brown gun club. You know, there is such a thing as like lefty gun. When you look at the vast majority of militias, when you look at the vast majority of like gun hoarders, when you look at those who buy things that amplify damage, that's, while it isn't completely on one side of the political spectrum, it is more on one side of the political spectrum than the other. Like, and I think maybe part of the reason why, it's one of many reasons probably, there has been a concentration of some right-wing violence is the availability of firearms. Doesn't mean I want to get rid of the Second Amendment. It's just like, yeah, once you have that damage amplifier, you know, it can make violence worse, obviously, when you have a gun.
Fully and free, with complete freedom, practice genuine terrorism on a daily basis, and then, you know, congratulate each other about how moral and how good they are for doing it because something bad that happened in Palestine or something bad that Donald Trump did 3 years ago. This is just simply a response. This is what's going to happen. And so, and I think that that's probably what it's going to take for these left-wing people to realize what a bad idea what they've been doing is. Because until it starts happening to them, until they start having people that are their friends or, you know, their, like icons that they look up to, the same way people looked up to Charlie Kirk, until they start seeing those people get killed, I don't think it's really going to be real for them. And unfortunately, I think that's the path that we're headed down because of the government and social media companies and every other seemingly governmental apparatus that has just completely hand-waved this problem and ignored it entirely. So the death of Charlie Kirk and the assassination of him should not come as a surprise to anyone. This should be something that everybody could have expected. All you had to do is read Twitter for an hour and you could have told me this would have happened, of course. Same with Reddit. And until that core problem is addressed, you will continue to see a rapid decline in any type of social discourse. And I'm actually kind of afraid.
So Asmon is saying we need more moderation on Twitter. We need more moderation of like violent threats on social media. Sure. Why not?
To see.
Will that include the cause for civil war? I hope so.
What's going to happen next? Because I think it's just going to continue getting worse, and I don't see the reason for it to stop. And so anyway, I wanted to make this video because it's obviously a topic that, you know, I've been talking about this a lot for the past few years now, and I was laughed at a lot, and people were telling me it wasn't that big of a deal, and oh, they were joking. Well, I saw the video. That wasn't a joke. And the reality is that those jokes and everything create a culture and an environment where the actual actions are more permissible. And you also have people that are the ones telling the quote jokes that are talking around just, directly, saying that this is a bad thing and it shouldn't be tolerated for any reason. You have, I don't want to go through a bunch of different names, but anybody, this is the way I look at it, I'm just going to make a categorical judgment here, is that any content creator or anybody like this who has been advocating for violence against a person in an extrajudicial way. I'm not talking about trying people who they disagree with for treason. This is advocating for the judicial process to be used against people they disagree with. I think that's fine. But whenever
What? 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 Just like random tree. Okay. 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 You can say that it's different. It doesn't mean it's okay. That feels like you could say that it's different to call for somebody to be assassinated versus thrown into a jail cell for treason. These are different things. That doesn't mean these one thing's okay because the other, they can both be bad, Asmon.
You have people that are saying things like 8647, or anybody who's advocating for any form of extrajudicial justice, extrajudicial justice, and basically vigilante justice on people who they disagree with politically, you have to realize that all of those people, I think, have made themselves acceptable targets. And I think that there's a lot and millions of people out there nowadays that see that. And I think that that should be extremely worrying for them. It should be terrifying. But the reality is that they have created that environment themselves through their own actions, through their behavior, and through their own words. You reap what you sow. And I think that things are about to get a whole lot worse. So anyway, guys, I wanted to make this video and talk about it. And that's about all I've got to say. So I hope to be back soon. I'll record videos.
He is right now the top political commentator on Twitch. Like when you look at the amount of views he gets on YouTube, it like outperforms Hassan. He's doing really good right now. So the top two political commentators to react to this on Twitch right now is Hassan and Asmon. And I haven't seen how Hassan has talked about it in the immediate aftermath. I've seen what he told the Rolling Stone. I read the article in the Rolling Stone where he seemed to show concern, of course, for his own safety because of the spirals. He's a pretty high profile, at least online, left-wing commentator, while also still like critiquing Charlie and what he stood for. But I mean, this is pretty bad. He just kind of used it all to just say, this is all bad. We should all, we shouldn't do this. I condemn everything, but this is mostly done by the left. And now you reap what you sow. Thanks, Asmon. I would still prefer him to make WoW videos. Why are we dedicating so much time to this brain rot? Because it's, again, one of the biggest political streamers in existence.